Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on wildfire safety. Thank you all for attending. My name is Doug Mosher, and I'm the acting president of the Oakland Firesafe Council. This evening's event is hosted by the Garden Guild, an Oakland East Bay organization, the Montclair Presbyterian Church, and the Oakland Firesafe Council. We do have a large number of attendees, frankly more than expected given all the rain we had a couple weeks ago. And this is great. People are thinking about wildfire even in our winter season and want to know how to prepare. We do ask that you keep your microphone muted for the duration of the event. And because we have several speakers, as you can see on the agenda, and only an hour and a half to present, unfortunately, we will not be able to take questions this evening. However, if you do have a question, please write it in the chat and we will compile them, answer as many as possible, and send out those answers as soon as we can, along with the link to the recording of this presentation. And now we'll hear from our first presenter, Oakland Fire Department Fire Marshal Darin White. Take it away, Fire Marshal White.
Ongoing concern of our safety. That being said, I'm going to get started right away and try to condense a lot of information in a short period of time. First, I'll start with from the beginning here. Oakland's wildfire history. As you can see from this photo, we called it the Berkeley Fire well over 100 years ago. Nearly 600 homes and many acres burned. That problem has persisted and been an ongoing threat throughout this region and this area, probably since well before that time, but we started recording this situation. And so as a result, we've had numerous instances where wildfire has been a significant threat. Of course, the Berkeley Tunnel Hills fire, June 2008, we had the Hiller Highlands fire that got everyone's attention. I was actually working as a battalion chief back then. And then in 2017, I was interim fire chief just prior to being appointed when we had the Edwards fire and CAL FIRE BAE 146 came and dropped fire retardant. It was a very impressive sight. And then just over a year and a couple of months ago, we had the Keller Ave fire. And so that's been a persistent problem area for us. And that history has us in a very precarious situation, but we're doing everything we can to try to address the concerns we have as community members and as members of the Oakland Fire Department and our partners. And I still reside here in the community. I'm in the Keller Ave campus area, and so I know all too well the threats and the concerns. The first thing I'd like to share with everyone is the importance of being prepared. I'm going to just speak to safety briefly. Genesis Protect gives everyone real-time situational awareness through their application. And they've been expanding their outreach and effort throughout the region. And so I encourage you, if you haven't already done so, please sign up for Genesis Protect so that you can understand what's taking place or any incidents that may occur in your zone or adjacent to it.
Fire Marshal White?
Yes.
Sorry if I may interrupt. You are going to, I believe, screen share your presentation.
Oh, that hasn't happened. My apologies. Let's go back here. So I'm going to just scroll back really quickly here so that you can see the images that I started with.
Sorry, I didn't jump in quickly enough.
No, my apologies. I thought I had it already. I'm looking at it and didn't see that it wasn't being shared. So
there you go.
Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Let me see if I can toggle backwards here somehow. All right, so just the photographs to get the point across about our history with wildfire in the area, some of the notable incidents we've had, and then moving into what I was stating about Genesis Protect and having a go bag. More information is available on ready.gov. And at minimum, I always recommend people have water, medications, flashlight, extra power packs for their cell phones, any medicine, any snacks that are things that you can just take the edge off of your hunger, extra socks, And please, face masks and a go bag for any pets you may have. Always important to have those ready on the go in the event you have an evacuation warning that's issued. And I always tell everyone, no two ways in and out of your neighborhood quickly, whether you're going by foot or whether you're actually traveling by vehicle. And so with that, I advise everyone on the evacuation warning. If you get an evacuation warning, that's actually the time to leave. Please do not wait until an evacuation order is issued. It may not afford you time to actually leave in an expedited manner because everyone on the order is now trying to move. And if you had gotten out sooner on the actual warning, you may not have encountered as much traffic or as much difficulty getting out of the area. And also expect your cell service to be somewhat intermittent if you live in the Hills area. I actually have T-Mobile, but I also for my work phone have AT&T. T-Mobile is not working well in my area. I have to be very honest about that. And so keeping a radio, tuning into KCBS, KGO, KSOL if you're Spanish speaking, and signing up for AC Alert are all alternate ways of getting information communicated to you as quickly as possible. Now I'm going to move into our inspection program just so we can discuss what's happened recently and some of the things we're trying to accomplish moving forward in 2026. This past year, we had a 91+% compliance rate on the initial inspections. By the time the second and third inspections were conducted, we were above 95%. So that's an amazing amount of success that encompasses roughly 24,000 plus inspections. And then with the re-inspections, we're above 27,000 plus inspections. And so when you looked at rate of compliance, I got to credit it to the many community members, the organizations that are all concerned and communicate the importance of continued vigilance and fire safety in our hills. There's been a lot of turnover in some of these neighborhoods going back since the Berkeley Tunnel Hills fire in 1991. But that being said, the groups live on, such as the Oakland Fire Safe Council, the Piedmont Pines Neighborhood Association, Claremont Canyon Conservancy, and you name it, a host of others who do an absolute amazing job of ensuring that we have committed members who are doing everything in their power to move towards being firewise and or ensuring our neighborhoods are in better position than we could have been. There's been concerns expressed in the past by numerous individuals as to some of the performance concerns they've seen with the fire service conducting inspections. And
Sorry, Fire Marshal, if you could just unmute yourself. That was our bad.
I'm not sure how much you
There,
missed. Can you hear me now?
there you go.
Okay. So some people have asked the question, why are firefighters not getting a full 360-degree inspection completed on certain properties? There have been a couple instances where firefighters who've attempted to gain access without approval or permission have encountered either hostile pets or even hostile individuals. In one instance, someone with a hostile pet had a significant laceration to their hand trying to escape the yard. In a second instance, there have been guns drawn because the individuals who were homeowners thought they were intruders trying to gain access into the property. And so as a result, we're teaching our firefighters to make sure that they do the initial inspection, knocking on the door, trying to engage with homeowners, and then ensuring they have access in a complete 360, which also enables them to look at adjoining properties in areas where they may not have been able to actually see the property except from three sides, the front and the what we call the B and C or B and D sides of the property. One of the things we're looking at providing this year to our inspectors is plant species recognition. We've got a lot of new firefighters joining us as new hires, and we want to ensure that they understand juniper and Italian cypress and eucalyptus and the other species that are prone to rapid ignition and creating unsafe conditions. So we want to inform the firefighters about what fire resistive or smart vegetation as opposed to flammable plants are and how they can actually contribute to rapid fire spread. Battalion chiefs, we're resuming the battalion chiefs' quality assurance and quality control over inspections, ensuring that they're inspecting what they expect of the performance of the firefighters, company officers, and others who are working off of the engine and truck companies. But in addition to that, the fire inspection supervisors here at the Fire Prevention Bureau will also do quality assurance, quality control over the fire inspectors who have a responsibility in the areas as well. So, as I stated, we have firefighters who conduct initial inspections. We have fire inspectors who work in the Fire Prevention Bureau. They're not sworn members, but they conduct initial and re-inspections of certain properties. And our battalion chiefs and inspection supervisors will ensure that any remedial training and or situations that are that they identify during their QA/QC are covered directly with the company officers and or their subordinates to ensure that the expectations are communicated and or the examples are covered to ensure our quality inspections remain just that, very high caliber and quality inspections. The Vegetation Management Union, our 2025 season timeline is going to be adjusted slightly for 2026 as we have the departure of our Vegetation Management Supervisor, Adam Ball, who's moved on to another department within the city. We're looking at someone to act higher rank in the interim with direct oversight and engagement from myself and the Assistant Fire Marshal. But our timeline is pretty much consistent with what we've been doing in years past, where we start our inspector preparation and training. The firefighters begin the conduction of inspections, the first round of them in June, and they're completed by July, and then re-inspections continue on into August and September, and hopefully by November, all re-inspections are complete and we're able to have or mirror the same success or increase the success we've had in previous years. So I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm going to try to spin through this pretty quickly. What happens after the inspection? Property owner gets a mailed copy of the inspection result. If the property is not compliant, the inspector is required to provide comments describing those challenges that need to be addressed. And there's also direction given to the individual community members to access the citizen access portal where they can view the inspection and also see the photographs and submit their own photographs showing that they've actually come into compliance. So on the initial inspection, if you're non-compliant, a re-inspection will be scheduled 45 days from the completed date of the initial inspection. The proof, however, should be sent in prior to 45 days that you have corrected the situation there. And again, using the ACELA Citizen Access, we call it the ACA. It's an online access or online website and a portal. You can view your results, pay fees, submit pictures and videos. We primarily prefer pictures from what I understand. It's actually better to load pictures onto that portal. Non-compliance, now we have a whole different situation here where we have fire prevention inspectors that go out and then a fee of $463 now applies due to the new master fee schedule fees that were approved by council. If you have any complaints, please send those via a phone call to 311 or call directly at 510-615-5566. Or you can go to oaklandca.gov/services/oak311. Those complaints will be documented, tracked, and routed to our unit for follow-up. Okay, we covered that. And this is just a look at our wildfire prevention zone. And then the slide on the right shows our zone 0. So since I'm not covering zone 0, I'm not going to really speak to this right now. And I'm just going to move to questions, which we're not able to field questions. So that concludes my presentation. I hope it was somewhat helpful. And if you do have any questions, you can reach out to me at dwight@oaklandca.gov, and I'll do what I can to respond pretty quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fire Marshal White. And I apologize for the Zoom glitches there. I hope we got them all out of the way for this evening. But really appreciate your presentation. Thank you for all that information. And as noted, some of the new folks coming in may not have heard. Due to our tight schedule this evening, we just don't have time to take questions. We wish we did, but we don't. But we do encourage you to put any questions into the chat that you may have for any of our speakers. And we will, if we can't answer those immediately, we will take those offline and get the answers back to you along with a link to this recording as soon as possible. So thanks very much. Okay, thank you again, Fire Marshal. Very much appreciated. So our next speaker this evening is Jared Savas. Jared, are you?
Hey everybody, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Hi, my name is Jared Savas. I am an aide for Oakland City Councilmember Janani Ramachandran, who represents District 4 for the City of Oakland City Council. The council member apologizes for not being able to make it tonight. She's out of town this week, but sends her appreciation to the Oakland Firesafe Council, the Oakland Fire Department, and all the other organizers and speakers tonight for their dedication around this critical topic. I'll be very, very quick. Just really wanted to just take a moment to emphasize the importance within our office of fire safety and fire prevention, which has been a really important critical issue for Councilmember Ramachandran since she took office in 2022. She's really taken, put as much effort as possible into placing a greater emphasis on comprehensive fire prevention throughout Oakland and beyond since taking office. Part of this just includes an effort last year that identified funding that allowed for the reopening of 3 fire stations that had been temporarily closed, while also that funding also helped to prevent 4 additional stations from browning out. And as co-chair of the City Council's 2025 budget team, helping to ensure that all 25 of Oakland's fire stations would remain open for the duration of the FY 25-27 budget, which marks the first time in 20 years that every station in the city would be fully operational. Additionally, our office took a leadership role in drafting the resolution that was placed Measure MM on the 2024 ballot. As you all know, Measure MM passed with the overwhelming support of residents who lived in the city's wildfire severity zone, and it's going to result in millions of dollars in annual funding for vegetation management and other wildfire mitigation efforts. So it's really been something that the council member is really committed to when it comes to the city of Oakland. And in addition to Oakland, she's also a founding member and current vice chair of the East Bay Wildfire Coalition, which is a regional effort that comprehensively addresses wildfire-related issues across the Bay Area. Numerous municipalities and counties have banded together to pursue federal and state grants to address wildfire prevention, discuss new and emerging wildfire safety and prevention issues, and just really increase efforts around collaboration when it comes to these efforts. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to just take a minute to ensure you that our office is here to support all of you and everyone in the community when it comes to fire safety and fire prevention issues. It's going to remain of the utmost importance this year and going forward. And if you need to engage with us on anything related to this, I'll put my contact information in the chat, as well as the sign up for our newsletter, which will allow you to keep informed about fire safety matters and lots of other resources pertaining to District 4 in the city of Oakland. So thank you, Doug, and thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jared. I appreciate that information, and we really appreciate Councilmember Ramachandran's and your efforts around wildfire safety and everything you do for not only District 4, but the city of Oakland. Okay, let's move on to our next part of the presentation. So that will be Wendy Goldsby and me talking from Oakland Fire Safe Council on home hardening. So again, this presentation is brought to you by not only the Oakland Fire Safe Council, but also the Garden Guild and Montclair Presbyterian Church. So our agenda for this evening on home hardening, we're going to do a really brief introduction to the Oakland Fire Safe Council. Then we'll talk about some factors that contribute to wildfire, and then go through home hardening steps that we encourage folks to take for wildfire. And then a quick update on Zone 0 regulations. So Oakland Fire Safe Council, we were founded in 2014. We are a nonprofit organization. We are not affiliated with the City of Oakland, but we work very closely with the City of Oakland, both the Fire Department, Emergency Services, Vegetation Management, Public Works, and so on. We're one of over 100 California Fire Safe Councils. There are others around, Berkeley, Diablo, and so on. And of course, as a nonprofit, we have a board and we're mostly all volunteers. And certainly if any of you have the desire to work on wildfire preparedness or safety or any aspect of wildfire safety, please do reach out to us. We'd love to have you join us. So some of the services that we provide include Firewise USA recognition, so assistance in going through that program, and that's what Joelle is going to talk about after we're done here. And potentially, possibly, hopefully, some grants for vegetation mitigation. Joelle may mention that. We don't have anything we can specifically offer you at this time. We also provide wildfire and emergency preparedness workshops. So it's an hour-and-a-half workshop we can give to your neighborhood group, a community organization, and so on. And it covers not only home hardening, but emergency preparedness steps, red flag warnings, evacuation, family planning, and so on. So it's a an hour-and-a-half or so workshop that we can do online or in person. We have a lot of information on our website. We certainly encourage you to take a look at oaklandfiresafecouncil.org. We have preparedness information. We have wildfire safety program information. We have 25 guides that are each on a specific subject or a topic, such as getting notifications, planning for evacuations, home hardening, and so on. So take a look at those. We provide updates on regulations around wildfire, upcoming events, advocacy we're performing or other groups around us are performing. And we provide these updates not only on our website. So if you look at our homepage, we have a running blog that we update often. And then we also send out a monthly newsletter that's chock full of information. So we encourage you to sign up for that. It is the link to sign up for the newspaper. I'm sure Jen will drop that in the chat. It's on our homepage. And then we have a two-way emergency radio network. If that's something that's of interest to you, please, again, reach out to us. Go to our website. We have a Contact Us page. You can ask some questions. I see somebody's drawing on our screen. Please don't do that. Factors that contribute to wildfire. This chart here shows the 20 most destructive. Susan Pate, for some reason, you are able to draw on my screen. I don't know if everyone else is seeing that. This chart here shows 20 most destructive California wildfires over the last several decades. We all know that 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021 were terrible years in terms of wildfire. The Camp Fire, Dixie Fire, the most acres burned and structures destroyed. Since then, it has been a little bit better. Obviously, we had the tragedies in LA last year, actually a year ago last week, and those were very destructive. But for the Bay Area, we were actually very lucky last year. We had a lot of fog. You may not like the fog, but from the wildfire standpoint, it was good. And we didn't have high winds, and I don't think we had a single red flag warning. So some of the factors that go into contribute to a wildfire are abundant dry vegetation. Again, I apologize for the scribbles on the page if you see them. Low humidity and strong winds out of the east called Diablo winds. So when those three main factors, reach certain thresholds, the National Weather Service will issue a red flag warning. And those are very critical, very important periods of time. You need to be prepared, you need to be observant, and you need to be, frankly, ready to evacuate. If you're in a red flag or we're in a red flag warning period, and even if we're not, if sparks are introduced, flames from power lines going down, or equipment use, or fireworks, July 4th, and so on, that really is a potential wildfire situation. So red flag warnings, again, we have information on that on our website. And please take a look at that and know what to do and know what not to do and how to prepare for red flag warnings. Hardening your home against wildfire. Wendy, if you want to take it away. Actually, let me stop my share here and reshare and see if I can get rid of those lines that were showing up on my.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I'm not quite sure where they came
While
from.
he's doing that, I'll just say hello to everybody. Good evening. I guess you all can hear me. I hope you can. My name is Wendy Goldsby. I've been a member of the Oakland Firesafe Council since early last year. I joined after I retired from my career in corporate environmental health and safety. After I retired, I was really looking for ways that I could contribute to our community. So here I am. So we're going to talk a little bit right now about how to harden your home against wildfire. I'm going to provide some pretty quick tips tonight in view of the time. So if you can just advance, Doug. All right. So wildfire embers, radiant heat, and direct flame contact and ignite your structures. So while it's important we consider all of these avenues when we go to harden our home. So while you might consider actually that most of the home loss is due to fires just running through your property, actually 60 to 90% of structure loss is due to ember related fires. So you can see pictures here of the embers that are flying through the air and landing on ignitable combustible materials around your house. And they are the source of a lot of structure loss. And the next slide, we show a video actually of how embers can be quite dangerous for your home. So Doug, if you want to go ahead, show that slide. Okay.
Yep, this video is from the Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS, and it's just a short video that they put together. And what happened, or what is going to happen, is that inside this warehouse they have ember generators that are throwing embers against a mock-up of a home. And you can see that there's a lot of combustible material in that zone 0, that's 0 to 5 feet. Those embers are starting that mulch or other combustible material on fire. It's spreading to the wood siding, it's spreading to the wood deck, it's spreading up the fence along the side of the wood fence along the side of the house. And at that point, the house is pretty much on fire. So the point of this video, again, as Wendy just mentioned, that embers start a vast majority of home fires in a wildfire, and we have to harden our homes to protect from those embers. Oops.
Right. So basically our objective when we go to harden our home is to reduce fuels around our property that can sustain a wildfire. So we want to be able to block the pathway of fire and also sites for ember penetration into our homes. So we recommend that you actually start with a home and work outward through defensible space zones. Zone 0 is actually very critical in this respect, because if you have a lot of combustible material directly around your property, zone 0 is the 0 to 5 foot perimeter around your home. And again, if you have combustible materials there, if embers land on them, ignite them, they can transfer that ignition to your home as shown in that video. So we recommend that you inspect your property, you inspect it closely, and you look for areas on your property and on your home where they might be vulnerable to intense heat, ember penetration, or direct flame contact. And then you want to try to make a list of where those combustible components are that you can actually replace, find alternatives that are non-combustible, or get rid of them altogether. Actually, you might find when you do this inventory that some things are pretty easy to fix, and they might not be so expensive. Other things might be a little more complicated and a little more expensive to fix. And we recommend that those more expensive things that you undertake when you're ready to do a larger upgrade to your home. But there's a lot of things that you can do in the meantime to harden your home that are easy and simple to fix. If you're struggling to really get a grip on where to start, what to do, there's plenty of guides out there. As Doug mentioned, we have a guide on our website, guide number 9. CAL FIRE has a lot of information on their site, and they actually also have a survey that you can take online to do a self-assessment of your property. And that survey will let you know what are the areas that are vulnerable and give you some thoughts about what to do. You can also hire a professional to come and do a fire audit of your home and property. It's a bit more expensive to do that, but they can look at the areas of your home that might be vulnerable to fire and give you a list of those areas and those items that you need to fix, and then prepare a list of mitigation measures for you. It's very convenient. So that's an option for you to do. But first, let's take a look at some of the things that are pretty easy to do. All right, so the easy things. We talked about zone 0 and how important that is. So you want to take a look around your house and on your house, around that 0 to 5 foot perimeter and on your house for any accumulation of combustible materials. For example, check your roof for dead leaves, buildup of pine needles, etc. Clear them off, clear them out of your gutters, make sure your gutters are free from any dead leaves, plant debris, etc. Look around the perimeter of your home, clear any excess vegetation, combustible materials from around the perimeter of your home, mulch, wood chips, etc. Get rid of those, replace those with stone or gravel if you can. And then just in general, try to move things that are combustible that lean up against your house, remove them, replace things with more non-combustible materials. Okay, next. Same with the decks and fences. You also want to make sure that they're not up against a lot of combustible materials. The deck is part of your structure. So you also want to check the 0 to 5 foot perimeter around your deck and make sure there's no flammable combustible materials there. Clear out those wood piles, propane tanks, all those flammable combustible materials you like to store under your deck. Get rid of those, remove those from underneath the deck. Also remove the ivy, vegetation that creeps under there. Make sure underneath your deck is free and clear of combustible materials, including vegetation. Same around your fences, and make sure that those are free and clear as well. When you go to replace your deck, sorry, Doug, one more thing. You can opt to use more non-combustible materials to replace that deck as well, including maybe ignition-resistant composition materials like Trex and things like that. Okay, next. Installation of vent screen is a very good way of keeping embers from penetrating your home. Specifically, you want to try to cover your existing vents with a corrosion-resistant metal screen with very small diameter, less than or equal to 1/8 inch, or replace them altogether with commercial vents. These are very effective of keeping embers out of your home as well. So these commercial vents actually have a sort of a trigger mechanism so that when temperatures reach a critical point, they'll shut and they won't allow any embers to enter your home. There's a few things to consider with this. It looks like something that might be easy to do yourself, but I do want you to consider that when you install these narrow, small mesh vents, they might impact your home ventilation. And then many of them are also located in difficult to access places like your roof. So having a licensed installer might be a good idea as well for this. Next. Embers can get in through any kind of little crack or leak in your house. So you want to make sure that your outside doors, garage doors, windows have good conditioning on the weather ceiling. So make sure you check that. And if you need to replace the weather sealing, do that. And that'll go a long way from keeping embers from creeping under your doors. Next. Look at your chimney. Make sure the spark arrestor that sits on top of your chimney is in good condition. Again, that's supposed to be composed of a non-combustible metal screen. And that screen should be anywhere from 3/8 to 1/2 inch wide to prevent embers from escaping your chimney. You also want to make sure that the chimney is in good condition. Make sure that if it's damaged, you get it repaired. If there's cracks in it, you want those sealed. You want to make sure that the chimney is kept clean and free of combustible, flammable resin buildup inside. And remember to close your flue when you're not using your fireplace. Okay, next. All right, it's important to also have functioning smoke and carbon monoxide detectors in your home. These can help detect any smoke or fire that's generated inside your house. Also, it's good to have fire extinguishers present in your home. You want to make sure that all these things are working. If your detector starts beeping, please change the batteries. Your fire extinguishers also, those little home ones, don't last forever. Change them out periodically. And also you can check to make sure they're okay and they're charged appropriately by looking at the small gauge that's on them. Learn how to use a fire extinguisher. It's pretty easy. And it's a good idea to be able to use it if you have an emergency situation in your home. Okay, next. All right, now we're going to look at things that are a little bit more difficult to do and certainly more expensive. So a roof is a very vulnerable spot. I'm very vulnerable to fires, very vulnerable to embers landing on them. So you really want to make sure that you have a UL Class A rated roof if you're in a wildland urban interface area. This means that the roof is composed of a non-combustible material like asphalt, composition shingle, ceramic, tile, or metal. You want to make sure that any sort of leaks or cracks in the roof are sealed to prevent embers from sliding in. Repair any damaged shingles or tiles. Make sure that there's no way that embers or flames can slide in underneath the surface of your roof to the foundation. It's also important to make sure that your gutters are composed of non-combustible materials, namely metal. Also, it's a good idea to install metal screens on the top of them. This prevents the buildup of plant debris inside, but you do want to not forget to check the inside of your gutters occasionally and also clear the surface of the screens from any kind of buildup of pine needles. They seem to like to collect pine needles. Skylights, many people have those nice plastic bubble skylights on their roof. In a fire situation, these can melt and then the fire can get inside your home. So the recommendation is to replace these with a double paned tempered glass skylight, complete with a metal mesh screen. Next. Fire-resistant siding is a super important factor in increasing the survivability of your home. Fire-resistant siding includes stucco, fibrous cement, and then there's also marketed out there hardy boards, which is fiber cement boards. They look a little bit like wood. You can see in this picture, those are hardy boards. You want to make sure that the fire-resistant siding extends all the way from the base of your home up to the roof. And then you want to include a 6-inch non-combustible perimeter around the base of your siding as well. You can kind of see it in this picture behind the dog. And that, again, could be metal flashing or that fiber cement material as well. All right, next. Metal flashing also should be installed at the intersections of your roof and walls or siding, also at your deck and wall intersections. It should be installed in those locations as well. Next. And then open framed eaves, open wood eaves, these can trap embers. Embers can get up in there and get stuck in the cracks in those eaves and then start a fire in your roof. Also, if you have vents in these eaves, the embers can get in through those vents as well. So the recommendation is to box in these open framed eaves with an ember-resistant, non-combustible material soffit panel that also includes an ember-resistant vent. You can see the guy here, he's installing these panels underneath the eaves. Okay. Fences. So fences that are attached to the home can act as a pathway for fire. So fires can travel along the fence right up to the structure of your home and then ignite your home. So it's the recommendation is really in that 5 feet perimeter from your home out 5 feet to replace those sections of fence with a section that is made of non-combustible material like metal, cement, or composition of some sort. You can see here an example of a metal fence that's attached to the wall of the house and then attached to an existing wood fence. The same goes for gates. If a gate is attached to your home, it should be that within 5 feet of your home be made of a non-combustible material. It's also good for the gate to hinge on the opposite side from the home, so the gate swings away from the house and not into the house. And that way, when you're evacuating, you can leave the gate open so it doesn't act as a pathway towards your house. So fences should be sort of open. You can see this design here, so it doesn't trap embers. Privacy fences, I've had an issue with those, with trapping embers, catching fires, and then acting as that pathway into your home. Okay, next. Fire breaks on your property. We talked about zone 0, replacing a lot of the combustible surfaces there, materials within that perimeter with gravel, stone, and other non-combustible materials, removing the mulch, removing the wood chips, etc. It's also a good idea to have these along your property in general for a couple of reasons. One is it can help you get out of the house safely if you have a walkway that is completely fire resistant. And it also will help firefighters approach your house to do their job. So it's a very important thing to do. It also will break the path of a fire if you have these walkways in your property. It will prevent the fire from traveling along towards your house. So it serves as a nice fire break. Okay, next. In intense heat, windows can break. And once they're broken, they can let flames and embers inside to burn the flammable materials inside your home. So the recommendation is to have double pane windows where one of these panes is of tempered glass. This tempered glass will sort of mediate the heat transfer into your home and also help prevent ignition of those flammable materials inside your home from the intense heat. So another thing to consider here is to have fire resistant or ember resistant screens or shutters. These can help block the embers from hitting your windows. Okay, that's it for that. Next. Okay, and then on top of your house, there are sprinkler systems, foam systems that can be employed. There are definite pros and cons for this. They can be effective, however, they are also expensive and they require a lot of maintenance. So one simple thing is that you can have garden hoses, long garden hoses installed around your property that can also help with supplying water. These sprinkler systems that you have should also have your own water supply for that, because otherwise you're going to be taking valuable resources and water away from firefighters who are trying to do their job. Okay. Next. All right, so there's many investigations that have been carried out really to determine which of these mitigation measures are the most important in saving your home in a wildfire event. There's been a lot of statistical analysis done with using post-fire data. There's experiments that have been done in a lab, both at lab scale and full scale. And then there's on-the-ground observations. There are many important factors, but nothing is going to really guarantee your home survivability. Evidence does show, though, that structure loss can be really reduced if a combination of efforts have been made. And you can see in this graph here that without any mitigation whatsoever, the majority of homes will burn. If you harden your home only, you can increase the likelihood of survivability by a few percent, 5% maybe. If you harden your home, plus you follow Zone 0 recommendations, you can even increase the probability of survivability even more, maybe by 15%. And then if you start to travel more and more out into making improvements in that defensible space going out, you can continue to improve your odds of survival. So it's not one thing that can help you, but you need to do a lot of different things. You need to expand the space around your home, block those paths for the fire. Also recommend that you work with your neighbors, get your neighbors involved, because the wider the space that's made more resilient, hardened, the better all of our odds are. So it's a good thing to do. It's a very important thing to do. And I'm going to turn it back over to Doug, and he's going to explain a couple more benefits and then talk to you about Zone 0.
Thank you, Wendy. And I just want to reiterate, in terms of these home hardening steps that Wendy just covered very well, certainly the ones that are quote unquote easy or less expensive are highly recommended that we all perform those steps, keeping your gutters clean, clearing out combustibles around your home at 0 to 5 feet, putting mesh over your existing vents, and so on. Those are highly recommended, and they're very cost effective. The ones that are not so easy are very expensive, like a double pane windows and siding. You do the best you can, and if you're doing a home remodel, that may be the time to make those sort of major changes and put in double pane windows and hardy board siding or stucco. So, but no one's suggesting that you take all those expensive steps. I don't think anybody could do that. I certainly couldn't. All right, want to talk just briefly about Wildfire Prepared Home. It's a program that is offered by the IBHS, the folks that brought us that Ember video we just watched. It is a program that you can go through as a homeowner. A couple different levels, base and plus, just have different qualifications to meet. There is a fee to go through the program. And what it is you do the preparation for basically hardening your home and hardening your landscaping and vegetation around your home. They give you guides, they give you a ton of information to follow, a lot of what we just covered. You submit your request or your form. They evaluate your property, your home, and if you are certified through this program, it may help retain your insurance. And again, some companies do give a discount. So one thing about the Wildfire Prepared Home program, they're very strict about Zone 0. Basically nothing is combustible in that, including wood fence sections. Here's the website, wildfireprepared.org. So we encourage you to look at this, and if nothing else, it's sort of a sanity check, if you will. So you can go through all their steps, you can look at what they require, and you can compare that to what you've done and how your home currently is protected or not. And it can be a good check for things that you want to do, or go through the program and get certified. Let us know how it goes. Very briefly, I want to talk about Zone 0 regulations. Laws, assembly bills have been created over the past several years to come up with Zone 0 standards and regulations for California. AB 3074 in 2020 set a mandate for creating an ember-resistant Zone 0. And the idea was to go from those assembly bills and laws to an actual regulation. So they directed the California Board of Forestry and Fire Protection, part of CAL FIRE, to write specific, detailed regulations for homeowners and fire departments to follow. It was expected last year, actually it was mandated last year by Governor Newsom, that the Board of Forestry publish regulations, determine, decide, agree upon, and publish regulations for Zone 0. And that was expected to be no combustibles, including wood fences and gates, maintaining tree limbs, which a lot of us already have to do as part of our inspections if you're in the hills, and so on. So what actually happened last year? Well, the regulations were nearing completion in Q4. The draft language was stabilized. It wasn't approved, but it was coming together. Firesafe councils, including ours and Firewise communities, all supported Zone 0 regulations, and as well as fire professionals across the state were very well aligned. However, there was a lot of opposition that intensified at the end of last year. Interestingly enough, a majority of that opposition came out of Southern California, where they had the Eaton and Palisades fires, LA. But they mobilized and they opposed the Zone 0 regulations that the Board of Forestry was working on. So their process stopped in December, basically, and the end of year deadline came and went without any adoption or any regulations for the state of California. Now, if you're in Berkeley, Berkeley does have their Ember program that they have put in place this year for sections of the Berkeley Hills that are strict as well on Zone 0. So Berkeley has done that. So what can we expect this year for Zone 0? Well, again, they missed the deadline, still in draft. The work has been paused from the Board of Forestry until March. That's what we've heard. We hope they'll resume discussions and the committee will meet again and move forward. But in the meantime, we have no enforceable protections. Another high fire season coming up where we are exposed. Insurance impacts have been escalating for many years. There is still a debate. There is a lot of science. There are a lot of studies. Universities, CAL FIRE have done a lot of research from existing fires, as well as a lot of testing of wildfire, how wildfires start fires in homes, for example. But there still is some debate. There probably always will be. And the reason that the opponents to Zone 0 have given for not wanting to have that no combustible zone are basically cost and also some environmental impacts of having to essentially remove any plantings you may have. So who knows? We just don't know when or if Zone 0 regulations will be adopted this year. We hope, again, things will start again from the committee in March and move forward, but right now we don't know. So last slide, takeaways. Home hardening is critical for both home and personal safety. I hope we got that message across. Note that anything you do, you're better off than before. So simply keeping your gutters clear, clearing out any combustibles, obvious combustibles in that Zone 0, putting on mesh or putting in, fire ember resistant vents, all those things you do, you're better off than you were before when you actually start to do those. Encourage your community, Wendy mentioned that, to harden their own homes. It's the weakest link. Everybody can have super well hardened homes and great vegetation management, except one house, and that is the one that could catch on fire. And as close as our homes are in many parts of Oakland, once a house is engulfed in flames and you have another house that's 20, 30 feet away, you've got now flames and radiant heat that is the problem, not necessarily embers at that point. But that home may have been started by the embers. So again, I encourage everyone, take a look at our guides, all the information on other sites out there like CAL FIRE, Firesafe Marin has a ton of good stuff, and reach out to us with any questions. So you can send us an email. We have the contact us page on our site. Here are some resources just for you to go take a look at as well. And last but not least, the Firesafe Council, we provide our services as volunteers, but we do have operating expenses, and we rely on donations to be able to do things like these webinars and workshops and so on. So please, if you can, donate. So thank you very much. And now we will pass this evening's show on to Joelle Fraser from the Oakland Fire Safe Council, who will talk about Firewise USA. Joelle.
Thank you, Doug. Let me share my screen here. Begin. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Looks good. So I am Joelle Fraser. I am the Firewise lead for the Oakland Fire Safe Council. I've been the Firewise lead for going on 3 years now. And in this position, I'm essentially charged with getting communities in Oakland to adopt the Firewise USA program. Tonight, I'm going to do an introduction to Firewise USA, so what it is, the benefits of becoming Firewise recognized, and very importantly, the steps to becoming Firewise recognized. So what is Firewise USA? So Firewise is a program of the National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA. So it's truly a national program with Firewise sites existing throughout the United States. And it's been around a while. It was officially launched in 2002. So it's been around for 24 years. So what Firewise does is it provides a self-directed structured framework that allows you to work together with your neighbors to reduce wildfire risks through taking actions in home hardening, creating defensible space, and evacuation practice. It educates the community on wildfire risks for their homes and neighborhoods. And it essentially provides a means for risk reduction for residents, and it helps first responders, because the safer your neighborhood is, the more mitigation you do, the safer it is for our first responders to defend your home should a wildfire occur. So Firewise starts with a risk assessment, a drive-through or walkthrough of your neighborhood, and you are using a template from Firewise to do this. Based on those recommendations in the assessment, you create a 3-year action plan or hazard mitigation plan for your neighborhood. And help is here. I facilitate this process with you. I help you through all the paperwork and the application every step of the way. But you are the key to success. Neighborhood, participation is the key to success. So what Firewise is not. So Firewise is not a lot of extra work. It is a very manageable and focused process. It is not dependent on 100% of neighborhood participation. I mean, it's essentially a outreach and education program, so you're always working towards more participation. It's not about identifying every risk and fixing it all at once. And very importantly, it is not a platform to blame or finger point. We want to be nice to our neighbors, and because we want everyone to eventually participate. It's not about singling out individual homes, and it's not expensive. The program itself is free, and you don't need everyone to participate, just enough to start. So this is a map of the Firewise sites throughout the United States. You can see there are many If you look at the West Coast, you'll notice there's a big cluster of communities that are Firewise recognized. Last I heard in early December, there's 1,485 Firewise recognized sites in California, again, more than any state. If you look to the other side of the screen, this is Oakland. So we have 15 Firewise recognized sites in Oakland. The furthest south is Skyline Boulevard Firewise recognized site. So it's South Skyline. Our sites go throughout the Oakland Hills all the way to the Hiller Highlands. And right now I would say we're working with about a dozen other communities that are somewhere along the pathway to becoming Firewise recognized. So why should you be Firewise recognized? So it reduces wildfire risk to your home and property. As we say in California, it is not if, but when. You learn how to apply best practices for wildfire mitigation by going through the process. It's great prep for the vegetation inspections. Everything you do with the vegetation inspections counts towards the Firewise recognition. And your house and your property, that's your biggest investment. So you are protecting it. You could save money on an insurance premium. Every insurer that I've heard of has, they give a discount. It's not a big discount, but they do give a discount if you're in a Firewise recognized community. It helps you going through the process, you build community pride, and you certainly meet more of your neighbors. And prepping for one disaster helps you prep for others. And we can join communities in Berkeley, Marin, and Orinda and Moraga. We have 15 Firewise recognized communities. It's taken a while to get traction in Oakland. Got a lot of traction last year after the Southern California fires, but other cities around us that share the same fire danger have like 40 to 50 Firewise recognized sites. So we're still playing catch up. So more details, again, it's free. There's no application or annual cost, and my facilitation is free. On average, neighbors invest 1 hour per dwelling in the boundary per year. So you are taking actions in mitigation with your neighbors and keeping track of those hours and expenditures. The documentation is done by you. Of course, I help with this, and there's templates to keep track of everything, but it's very important to have participation. And there's assistance from Firewise USA, the Oakland Firesafe Council, the Oakland Fire Department, and CAL FIRE is a big partner in Firewise. The process is 4 steps. Organizing, so you want to form a small neighbors, that will be your Firewise committee. The next step is planning, where you decide on your boundary, you perform the assessment and create the action plan based on the findings in the assessment. And then you're also tracking your hours and expenditures the whole time. And then lastly, you apply for Firewise recognition and celebrate your success and efforts, reporting back to Firewise. So digging into the steps a little bit more for organizing. So again, you're identifying a small group and a resident leader who will be the point of contact for Firewise and for me. And that's the group that will keep receipts and the paperwork. You create a profile for your neighborhood on the Firewise USA site. You get your neighbors together to inform them about Firewise. I mean, that's what we're doing now. And I do this presentation to neighborhood groups. And you have to recruit at least 8 dwellings to participate to get started, and invite a fire professional to assist if possible. So the next step is planning. And this is, of course, the step that takes the longest. So you have to define the boundaries of your proposed Firewise area. CAL FIRE likes to see at least 30 dwellings in the boundary, no more than 2,500. In the city of Oakland, we have one Firewise boundary that's 29 homes, and it's the entire HOA, so CAL FIRE approved of it. And our biggest boundary is Park Ridge Estates, which has 250 dwellings in the boundary. You can learn about doing the assessment, taking the wildfire assessment tutorial. It's an interactive tutorial on the Firewise website. And then you perform the assessment with a resident leader and a small team of neighbors. So that's your assessment team with help from myself, of course. And again, this assessment is your primary tool for determining the actions that go into the action plan. And I always tell people to take pictures during the assessment because it's great to, see the before and after once you become Firewise recognized and you start working on your action plan. And then again, of course, there's the assessment, and then you create the action plan based on the findings in the assessment. So this is just one example of a boundary that we have in the Oakland Hills. This is Crown Ridge HOA. It's over up in the hills by Merritt College. They were recognized last July. I like this map, so that's why I'm using it as an example. It's a very well-defined boundary. The HOA is 152 homes. They're very organized because they're an HOA and they have a lot of participation from the neighbors. But this is just one example. I could help you decide what your boundary is, but it should be something that's also doable for you. These boundaries aren't static. Every year when you renew, you can increase your boundary. So we have one Firewise group who increased their boundary last year. So when you perform the assessment speaks to the general conditions of the overall Firewise site. We're not looking at every individual dwelling. And again, anyone involved with the assessment should watch the interactive video because then you'll be clear on how you perform the assessment using the Firewise template. So when we look at the assessment, we're looking at the vulnerability of homes to surface and crown fire. And as I believe Wendy mentioned, it's usually blowing embers that that catch homes on fire. We're also looking at the condition of the structures themselves. What kind of hazards are there within the home ignition zone on individual properties? And do you have concerns in your neighborhood about open space or public land that's adjacent? You want to consider the factors that influence fire behavior and structure ignitability. So here we're looking at structural characteristics, roofing, siding, and decks. We're looking at vegetation, the different types of vegetation and the density of vegetation. What is the housing density? And looking at the ground fuels versus the crown fuels. So some sample assessment questions. You answer these questions and they help you create your action plan. So are the roofs and gutters clean of debris? Pine needles, leaves, etc. Is there a wooden fence attached to the home? As Wendy mentioned, in zone 0, we do recommend that 5-foot section that's attached to the house be made of non-combustible materials. Have vents been covered with 1/8 inch Firesafe mesh? And we're talking about all of the vents. Is there dead vegetation or dried leaves, pine needles near the foundation? And have ladder fuels been removed underneath trees? These are just some of the questions that you are essentially yes/no answers in the assessment. Again, when we do the assessment, we're looking at the home ignition zones. Wendy out a little bit. So you want to focus on those 3 zones. Firewise has their own terminology. So the immediate zone is the 0 through 5 foot zone. Intermediate zone is 5 through 30 feet. Extended zone is 30 to 100 feet. And I always caution people, just these terms vary. It could be zone 0, zone 1, or zone 2, but the ideas are the same and the actions you should take in these zones are the same. So talking about the immediate zone, that is the home in the area 0 through 5 feet from the furthest attached exterior point of the home. This is called the non-combustible area. And science tells us that it's this zone. This is the most important zone to take immediate action in because it is the most vulnerable to embers. And so some immediate zone actions, clean the roofs and gutters of dead leaves, debris, pine needles, anything that could catch embers. Install 1/8 inch metal mesh on all vents to reduce embers penetration. Install hardscaping here, pavers, gravel, cement walkways around the perimeter of the foundation. Firewise does endorse zone 0. Think about it as a cement apron around your house. Do not use organic mulch in this zone. Use gravel or rocks. And move anything flammable away from your wall exteriors. Again, mulch, leaves, needles, debris. Don't stack your firewood piles there. And then remove anything underneath, stored underneath decks and porches, and consider screening in decks and porches with Firesafe mesh. So the next zone is the immediate zone, and this is where you want to employ careful landscaping and create fire breaks that can help influence and decrease fire behavior. So this is called the fire break zone or the clean, lean, and green zone. So some actions in this zone, again, creating fire breaks with walkways, paths. Your driveway is a natural fire break. Keep lawns and native grasses in this zone to a height of 4 inches or less. Keep plants and trees hydrated and well maintained. Anything can burn given the right conditions. So maintenance. Remove ladder fuels in this zone. Anything underneath the tree that could have a surface fire reach the crown. That's something you definitely don't want. You want to prune trees up to 6 to 10 feet from the ground. For shorter trees, do not exceed 1/3 of the height. If you do have shrubs underneath the trees, you want to think about the mature height of that shrub, and you want 3 times the height of the shrub distance between the lowest branch of the tree. And in this zone, Firewise recommends 18 feet between the crowns. And of course, you don't want anything within 10 feet of your roof. And in this zone, keeping trees and plants limited to small clusters is recommended. So here's some examples of fire breaks. And again, in this zone, they want you to employ these non-flammable landscaping materials. It could be very attractive, bricks, pavers, gravel, water features. These all break up the continuity of vegetation. And again, some photos of plants that are spread out in small clusters, well maintained with a good use of stones and pavers. Again, small clusters of plants are recommended, breaking up the continuity of the vegetation across the landscape. So it does not, if there's a fire, it does not bring the fire to your house. It's recommended that you are planting lower growing plants and shrubs in this area. And again, employing pavers and gravel. So the next zone is the extended zone, so 30 to 100 feet, sometimes out to 200 feet. And the goal here is not to eliminate fire, but to interrupt its path. Keep the flames smaller and on the ground. This is called the reduced fuel zone. So some actions in this zone are disposing of heavy accumulations of ground litter and debris. I mean, that's of course in every zone, but especially in this zone further out. Removing dead plant and tree material, removing the small conifers and brush growing between mature trees, removing any vegetation adjacent to outbuildings or storage sheds. Trees in this area for 30 to 60 feet, it's recommended that the crowns be 12 feet apart. And 60 to 100 feet, Firewise recommends crowns 6 feet apart. And talk to your neighbors about defensible space. We have a lot of housing density. Your defensible space often crosses property lines. And as we know, fire does not care about property lines. So after you do the assessment, looking at the home ignition zones, you write your action plan. So you identify actions and steps based on the assessment to reduce your neighborhood's risk to wildfire. Again, focusing on these 3 ignition zones. Also focus on education and outreach event. Each Firewise recognized site has to hold one Firewise event presentation per year. And also in your action plan, of course, you're considering home hardening and fuel reduction, but you do want to consider, what are fire hydrant locations? Where are they? Can you see them? Are they covered by brush? I've been on several walkthroughs where we couldn't find the fire hydrant because there was brush overgrowing it. What are the egress and ingress routes out of the community? How many are there? Do you practice more than one way of getting out of your neighborhood? You want to think of street signs and address numbers. You want to make sure they are visible. And again, this idea, do you share land with a public owner? There could be a city park in your boundary, and you can address what's going on in the, with vegetation there in your action plan. So some sample action plan ideas: clear the immediate zone. So the first 5 feet from the house with flammable debris, remove debris from gutters and roofs, locate all neighborhood fire hydrants and make sure they are visible and accessible. Fire hydrants require 3 feet of space on all sides. Install or replace your house numbers. You want to make sure that your house numbers are visible from both directions and at night so that first responders can find you. And one action plan idea that a lot of groups are doing is they're holding a community cleanup day where everybody's working on vegetation removal, and they are getting a big green waste bin from their local council person. And of course, another action is create an evacuation map. So after you do those steps, you want to document 1 volunteer hour per home with Firewise, within the Firewise boundary, to stay in good standing. You could find examples of eligible actions and activities and expenses on the Firewise site. Essentially anything you do counts towards those volunteer hours, all your prep for vegetation inspections. You want to host an event and work with your neighbors on the action plan, and you log your hours. Firewise does have a volunteer hourly worksheet. I've also created one, a Google form where you could capture all of your neighbors, your whole neighborhood's actions. And you complete the education and risk reduction tasks outlined in your plan annually. And so the next step, your final step, is telling. So after you do steps 1 through 3, you apply for Firewise recognition through the Firewise portal. You report your yearly education, event, and mitigation actions to stay in good standing. You hold a Firewise Day to engage and educate your community. That's your annual event. You do have to renew Firewise every year, and in the Firewise portal, of course, I assist with this, and it's always in November, right around Thanksgiving. Once you become Firewise recognized, you have access to all of their free materials. You could get signs for your neighborhood, put it at the end of at both sides of your boundary, and that you have become a Firewise recognized site. And again, tell everybody about your success. This is essentially the organizational chart for Firewise. I am the Firewise lead for the Oakland Firesafe Council. My email's there. If you have any questions following this presentation, please reach out to me. I'm also considered the regional coordinator with CAL FIRE. Our CAL FIRE state liaison for Alameda County is Chief Brian Olson. So CAL FIRE's role is to read our applications once we submit them, and they could accept them, which has been happening a lot lately, or reject them. There could be some technicality and they're rejected, but they tell us exactly what to do, and then it's a quick fix and we reapply. They do want us to become Firewise recognized. NFPA has a Firewise program lead, Megan Fitzgerald McGowan. She's, I think, one of 2 people at NFPA dedicated to Firewise nationally, but she's very responsive. I work very closely with the Oakland Fire Department's Vegetation Management Division. Fire Marshal Darin White, who I believe is still on and spoke at the top of the hour. And I especially work closely with a vegetation supervisor who is Chris Clark. Many of you know that Adam Ball moved on to a different department. But what we do after the assessment is I organize a 2-hour walkthrough with the fire department and the residents and essentially vet the findings in the assessment. And there's our website. I urge you to go to it to see all of the downloadable guides we have. It's literally a treasure trove of information. And please, subscribe to our newsletter. And that is all I have. Again, that's my email at the top, Joelle at oaklandfiresafecouncil.org. Please let me know if you have any questions, just email me.
Thank you very
Stop
much.
share.
Thank you, Joelle. That was great. Okay, we have one more speaker, Julia Blitch from B&B Horticulture, right here in Montclair and Oakland. So Julia, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julia Blitch. I'm the lead designer and co-founder of B&B Horticulture. We're a small landscape design and garden maintenance company that's located in the East Bay. And like Doug said, we live in Piedmont Pines. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some landscape design guidance that we can provide and some plant suggestions and generally some like safety assessment you could do in your own garden as a homeowner. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my slides here and a slideshow. So one of the first things we really recommend you do when you're going into your garden and assessing the safety is identify your plants. You're going to want to do this so that you know what you have in your garden. You can tell if certain plants are high flammability, high risk, and also so that you can just properly manage them. The next thing that we highly recommend you do is you assess your layout. You're going to want to assess the spacing between your trees. You're going to want to assess the planting areas closest to your home. And you want to make sure that those areas are planted with well-watered, shorter plants all along walls, fences, decks, roads, driveways. One thing that many people are a little daunted by, but is super important, is to pay close attention to the larger features, your trees, shrubs, and large grasses. These are the plants that are going to cause potential issues that you can do a lot year round to take care of. You can also bring in a professional if needed to assess the health and the stability of your trees, shrubs, and maintenance needs. And then we really recommend, if you're not able to do it year round, spring and summer as we approach fire season. Spend some time going through your garden, making sure that things are healthy, that there's not work that you need to do to make sure that you're in the best possible situation if a fire does come through. And one of those things that you can do is to prune things properly, removing dead branches and reducing congestion among your garden. Without regular pruning and attention, trees and shrubs tend to get congested, crossing branches, and you really want to take care of that. It's great to have hedges for birds and small animals, but all those little crisscrossing branches inside are going to hold on to a lot of dead branches, some debris. You want to make sure you're cleaning all of that. And then also just make sure you're removing dead or dying plants. And if you have garden areas that are super congested, just consider removing some of the shrubs so you have a little more space in your garden. Well-watered gardens are healthiest. So as far as your irrigation system, make sure that your irrigation setup is appropriate for your plant palette and for the current season. Any plant, like we've said, can burn in a hot enough fire, but a well-watered garden is going to be less flammable. So at least every couple months, we recommend quarterly, check your garden for leaks. Little creatures love to take bites out of irrigation lines when it's hot. And change your watering schedule as the seasons shift. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your watering needs all year. I have a little layout here. Let's see. So this is just a mock-up of a basic home. You're always going to have your driveway up front and your street up here, and you want to make sure that all these spaces close to the house, along the driveway, along the street, make these areas well watered, make them low maintenance, make them shorter plants. And so many homes have built-in beds right up against the house. These are super essential. Make sure your irrigation is working well. Make sure these plants are lower, not highly flammable, not high-risk plants. And make sure you have plenty of spacing between your features and your larger trees. Not only will spacing out your larger plants be safer as far as your fire safety, if you have a larger depth of view in your garden, it's going to feel larger. It's going to be really a beautiful view from your home, from your patios, your decks, and all of that. And spacing everything out is also going to make your maintenance easier year round. As far as plant selections, plants that are succulent, semi-succulent, and have high water content foliage are the most fire resistant. Any plant can catch fire again, but these are going to be a little more resistant. You don't want to choose plants that are waxy or oily. Oily plants like juniper, like cypress, like rosemary, they smell great, but they contain volatile oils. And not only will they burn super hot, they'll also pop, which is very dangerous. One thing that you see a lot of in gardens is plants that are not appropriately sized for their space. So you want to make sure that when you're planting plants, you're selecting appropriately sized plants for your garden. But the smaller, higher water use plants with more open structure closer to your home, decks, driveways, and the road. And then place your larger plants further out from these spaces and make sure they're appropriately spaced from each other. Not only is this going to help as far as having open space and being fire wise, it's also better for the health of the plant. Congestion in your garden is where bugs and diseases love to thrive, and that's going to cause more die-off, more flammability, and more mess to deal with, and generally more maintenance. You're going to want to avoid exceptionally messy plant selections because that's just going to create tinder on your ground. Leaves, needles, bamboo is a great example of a terrible plant to have in your yard if you're being safety conscious because it's constantly dropping super dry leaves. So when you're planting, make sure that you're being attentive to how messy the plant is that you're putting in your garden. And just generally don't be afraid of a little bit of open space in your garden. It allows the animals, the birds to kind of navigate through that. It creates airflow. It's lower maintenance. And just a little patience goes a long way if you're planting small. Don't be tempted to plant tight. Just give the plants the space they need to thrive. Most gardens have mulch in them. Bark mulch is super common around here. It's also extremely flammable. So don't use bark mulch and remove it if possible. If you have a very small amount of mulch on your garden, you can mix it into the soil with a compost or a landscape soil top dressing. But if you have heavy mulch, you might want to just remove it. And against the house, absolutely remove it. Gravel is a great top dressing you can use. You can use it in any garden, but it's especially lovely in dry gardens and xeriscape designs. There are all sorts of sizes, colors, textures of gravel. So there's usually a gravel that will suit the aesthetic of your home and garden. And one topsoil compost option is just to use topsoil and compost. You can get really rich, beautiful soil from a local provider. You can get a big bulk delivery. You can bring it in bags, whatever is most approachable for you. It's a great option for most gardens. And you can allow a small amount of leaf litter, just a couple inches, to provide natural mulch. Just make sure during the summer seasons you want to clean up anywhere that it's really collecting heavily, so that you have less flammability there. But it's a really great way to maintain your garden and keep a clean look. And although people do tend to use mulch for like weed retention and like to keep down the weeds, we always, in the gardens that we care for, we use white vinegar to take care of weeds. So just give it a spray with white vinegar. And if it's in a hot day or really persistent weeds, just give it a couple goes or add a little bit of Epsom salts to those. But again, no mark mulch if possible. Gravel is lovely in the garden. And then we highly recommend topsoil or compost for a really easy, straightforward soil cover. I have these lists of plants that I sourced from the Oakland Fire Safe Council website. There are a lot of great lists online that you can find. A lot of cities, a lot of organizations provide lists of plants that are more fire resistant. These are not, there are so many plants that are fire resistant. There are also a lot of plants you want to avoid. So this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but generally you want to think about succulents, you want to think about semi-succulents. You really want to pay attention to your trees, the kinds of trees you have. There are a lot of eucalyptus, a lot of acacia in the hills. Those are going to be far more flammable. The pine, cedar, cypress, far more flammable than trees like ash, beech, citrus, elm, ironwood, maples, and oaks that hold more moisture in their leaves. Just pay attention when you're selecting new plants for your garden and when you're going through and assessing your garden. See if you have any of these kind of like red flag plants that we have here that are going to be more dangerous in a fire situation. And again, you can reference these lists on the Oakland Fire Safe Council website. There's on there with Guide 14. Couple really wonderful lists specifically about landscape management and plant selections on there. And then just generally increasing your fire safety in the garden, just start by assessing the plants in your garden, the plants that create the biggest risks. Look at your trees, your shrubs, and your grasses, and your flammable plants. If you need help assessing it, bring in a professional. There are arborists, there are horticulturists like our company that can come and help you assess the garden. And it can just help you get organized as far as thinking about next steps for taking care of your garden. And if you need to make any adjustments to your maintenance, your irrigation, your plant selections, and how to do so in an approachable way. We really recommend setting up a maintenance plan that gets you in the garden quarterly at a minimum. If you're only able to do it once a year, hit that spring, summer, kind of early heat time. But once every couple months is a really great way to get into your garden, look through what you have to do and just take it on piece by piece. Keep an eye on your irrigation system. Make sure things are intact. Make sure things are working properly. If you have some little holes in one area, it's going to affect the pressure throughout the garden and it's going to cause dry areas in other parts of the garden. So this is really important. It can be a little daunting, we found, for homeowners to approach the irrigation system, but I promise once you get used to it, you'll get used to it, you'll know how to operate it, and you'll feel much more comfortable managing it. And your garden will be healthier for it. And then as you're adding to your garden and managing your garden, just pay attention to the full-grown size of plants, the horticultural needs, and the water usage of those plants when you're adding them to the garden. Just set yourself up for success as you're adding your plantings, as you're working in your garden. It'll make everything a lot more approachable. Reference available lists of recommended plants to be more fire-wise. Reference growers' pages to find information about plants. And ideally, with this work, as your garden ages, it becomes less work and is a more enjoyable place to spend time, in addition to being a more fire-conscious environment. So there's a lot you can do on your own in your garden, and yeah, I hope this was a little helpful.
Thank you, Julia. That was great. That was a great presentation, great information. Thanks so much. Okay, well, we are now at the end of our presentation. Thank you everyone for staying. And again, if you had dropped a question in the chat, we'll do our best to answer that as soon as we can and get that out to everybody. We will also send out a link to this recording. And thanks again to all of our presenters this evening. It was super great information. We appreciate it. We'd like to do this again at some point in the upcoming months when we're closer to the height of fire season, if there is one. And so we'll be getting the word out on that. Okay, hope everyone has a great evening. Again, thanks so much. Bye-bye. And thank you, Jan.